Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys the fresh perspective on things. And we see them in. I don't even know what to say today, but before we even get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to follow me on Instagram, my name is Charles Sabansi. My handle is CTABANZ. If you want to follow the channel on Instagram, same in the channel, DREAMERSPRO. And if you want today's full show before it comes out on YouTube, it is streaming for free on the DREAMERSPRO podcast. We have pinned below. Folks, we got some drama this year. I mean, this year, from a content creator standpoint, I mean, it's wonderful, right? Every day you turn around, there's always something to talk about. Coming up with topics has been a total breeze, extremely easy. I can go to bed, wake up, okay, I can talk about this, talk about that. So it's been an absolute joy because everybody got something to say this year, and it ain't no different. Yesterday, Stephen A. Smith finally reached his breaking point, and he decided that he was going to respond to Jason Whitlock. Now, all of you know Jason Whitlock. We've discussed him from time to time on this channel. The only time I really honed in on him was during the Deion Sanders situation, where I was talking about him. Ever since then, I don't really talk about him, but obviously he's a well-known name in the sports media business. So what happened about, I'm going to say 4 or 5 days ago, maybe less than a week ago, Jason Whitlock started producing these shows where he was kind of dissecting the origin story of Stephen A. Smith based off of the things that he said in his book, Straight Shooter, and based off of the things Jason Whitlock himself knows for someone being in the business, and some of the things that Stephen A. Smith has said on television. And essentially what Jason Whitlock was doing was he was drawing inspiration from the Cat Williams, Shannon Sharpe interview, because during that interview, Cat Williams was basically lifting the veil and revealing to people what really takes place behind closed doors and saying, no, what you thought was that is actually this. And I think he drew inspiration from that and was basically trying to say that, because he said, you know, he alluded to Kevin Hart possibly being a plant. And I think that was the direction that Jason Whitlock was going in terms of trying to talk about Stephen A. Smith by dissecting his career and basically raising questions about some things that didn't add up, some incongruities in the story, right? So he did this. I saw it in its entirety. Then he did another show doing it. So what happened yesterday? One of our viewers sends me a text, not a text, a message on Instagram to my Instagram. And I just see this thumbnail, this picture of Stephen A. Smith, like a screenshot of his Twitter, where he says, today I'm going to be responding to that no good fat bastard, right? So I put it up and I was like, he's talking about Jason Whitlock. So what happens? I'm waiting like everyone else to see the show drop. And the show drops on Stephen A. Smith's show, podcast. It's about a 50-something minute show. And the first few minutes, he was talking about the Pat McAfee situation at ESPN, and someone that works there, he would have some good information there. So he talked about that. And then he got to the part where he wanted to talk about, or he started to talk about Jason Whitlock. But prior to that, he started to give a bunch of disclaimers. You know, I spoke to my pastor, I spoke to this person, spoke to that person before I said this. And he just basically let loose. So what we want to do is we want to play some of the highlights of what Stephen A. Smith had to say. It was a lot. So I suggest you get yourself some popcorn. Pause the video or something, get some popcorn. I hope you're sitting out for this one, or if you're on your drive to work or whatever. Take a listen to some of the things that Stephen A. Smith had to say about Jason Whitlock, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what he had to say here.
Think about this for a second. I'm supposed to be covering sports, but I make a career out of talking about my colleagues. That ain't work. That's you finding some slick way to get a check because you can't get a job. That's Jason Whitlock. That's who the hell he is. Now, I have sat back for years, at least 9 to 10 years, saying absolutely nothing about this man. I never uttered the words fat bastard out of my mouth until a few months ago. So that means that the previous 9 years, you never heard me speak on him at all. But now it's necessary. Excuse me. Because you see, if you listen to the fat bastard, I didn't play high school ball, even though my coach's name was Harvey Stoller. It was Thomas A. Edison Vocational and Technical High School. I played there my senior year. I was in a basketball tournament at Fashion Institute of Technology where I dropped 27 points and got a scholarship because the coach came calling me after that and what have you. Couldn't write, huh? While you were on Blaze TV, spewing that to people, did you tell them that? Did you tell them how you stood outside of First Take begging me to talk to you? Did you tell them that once this same article in Deadspin came out, weeks later you wrote a lengthy apology to me in an email, begging me to forgive you, pointing out how you were betrayed by this particular writer, so you know how I must feel that you betrayed me? Did you tell the folks that? You bitch. Did you tell them? You fat piece of shit. Did you tell them that? Got the names. We got Jamel Hill. We got Howard Bryant. You want me to bring up the other writers that wouldn't work for you? Why it took you nearly 2 years to get an article out? Because you ran that so bad you were running it into the ground? What a disgrace you were to John Skipper, the former boss of ESPN, or the host of others. You want me to talk about that? Because I got receipts. I got the email. Want me to talk about that? Now, just for everybody that wants to understand, how could this possibly be? Because once upon a time, I actually tried to speak up for this damn cretin. I knew he was a piece of shit. But I said, look, maybe he's misunderstood. Why would I do that, ladies and gentlemen? Because sometimes as black folks, we get in our own way. Jason Whitlock pounced on it. Because that's what he does. You see, what he does is he's the one that puts himself in front of white folks. The white folks, not all white folks, not most white folks, but the white folks that dare we say may have a problem with black folks. He says, I'm your man. That's what he does. You think I'm lying? Ask ESPN. Ask Fox. Ask the Kansas City Star. Ask them all. Jamel Hill. Rob Parker. Chris Broussard. Skip Bayless. Yours truly. Along with a host of black folks all over this country. Every single one of them will confirm what the hell I'm saying about this piece of garbage. Ladies and gentlemen, as a black man, I often told y'all, I cannot imagine as a black man, knowing our history, anything worse than a white supremacist. That is, until Jason Whitlock came along. He's worse than them. He is the worst, most despicable, lying, no good, fat ass human being I have ever known in my life. He is the worst. He's not ethical. He's not moral. Clearly, based over what I've told you about me, he's also not factual most of the time. He will lie, he will denigrate, and he will turn against anyone to serve his own good. The real reason, and casting no aspersions on what Blaze TV presents and what it has to offer, the real reason he's there is because he can't get a job anywhere else. He hasn't burnt bridges, he's napalmed them. Call Eric Shanks and Charlie Dixon at Fox. Call Jimmy Pitaro, Burke Magnus, Dave Roberts, Norby Williamson at ESPN. Call them. Call them. Call John Skipper at Meadowlark Media. I'm giving you names. I'm giving you names. That's just I already gave you on-air talent names. I gave you reporters and on-air talent. Ladies and gentlemen, this same Jason Whitlock that wants to talk smack about me is the same Jason Whitlock that wanted to hire me. It's the same Jason Whitlock that stood outside doors trying to get me and coax me into even having a conversation with them because they knew I was so disgusted with him, presumably after he hit a strip club, because we all know ain't nobody trying to go out with him.
So you heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say. Look, I have never seen Stephen A. Smith that upset. Never seen him that upset before. And I think the reason he was that upset was because it struck a nerve. He said something that was important. He said, I've been holding this in for about 10 years. This guy's been saying things, doing things, whatever. And I've turned the blind eye. But I reached my breaking point where it was no longer about, oh, well, I'm Stephen A. Smith. Oh, I'm on the #1 morning sports show, blah, 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 blah. It was about, I've had enough. And I'm going to respond to this person. I can understand that. Because at the very end of the day, we're human beings. Your money, your success doesn't change that fact. Somebody says something to you that you dislike, you're going to feel a type of way. I don't care how much money you have, you're going to feel a type of way. Your money doesn't stop you from feeling any type of way. It's up to you to ignore it, but money doesn't make those words go away. And that's what we saw here. Stephen A. Smith is making a lot of money. He's at the top of the game. But nevertheless, it was still bothering him. Some people will say you shouldn't let him bother him. I disagree because he's a person. What do you mean he shouldn't? He's allowed to feel however he wants to feel. Then it's up to him to decide whether or not he wants to respond or not. He said he spoke to his bosses at ESPN and he got the green light, I assume, to go out there and say what he had to say. And he was so heated, as a matter of fact, that he actually sent out a preemptive strike on ESPN's airwaves, which was shocking to me. Molly Karam was there. Shannon Sharp was on the air as well. And he did that. Now, I don't know about the facts behind some of the things that Stephen A. Smith brought up in his monologue, so I can't really speak to that. Jason Whitlock brought up some different points. Stephen A. Smith addressed very little of them, if I'm being honest, at least some of the points that I heard. For example, one of the points that he brought up was there was a segment on ESPN. I think it's happened twice. And during this segment, there was this joke where they had, 3 players, their stats, the faces of the players were hidden. And then you have one person averaging 1.5 points per game or something like this, or 1 assist or something like that. So then they do a blind reveal, then they reveal the players. And then you see Stephen A. Smith, I think it was in his college career. They were talking about their college careers. And Stephen A. Smith averaged 1.5 points per game. So Jason Whitlock, on his show, he asked the question that never occurred to me because I wasn't paying that close attention to it. He said, Stephen A. Smith said when they put up that graphic, what they're forgetting to tell you is that I cracked my knee and I only played 1 game. Jason Whitlock then asked the question, well, if you only played 1 game, how in God's name did you average 1.5 points per game if you only played one game. That's a very interesting point. It's quite literally impossible to do that. You can't average 1.5 points playing one game. And then there was another clip of Stephen A. Smith saying, I didn't play. Jason Whitlock said that was a little bit questionable. He didn't understand that. It didn't make any sense to him. Stephen A. Smith did not address that point. Jason Whitlock also said that Stephen A. Smith did not write his book, his memoir. And Stephen A. Smith basically said, what are you talking about? I didn't write my own book, my own memoir. I didn't write it. Now, there's something worth noting. There are people that write memoirs that they don't write it themselves. You have someone that's a writer and you talk and the person transcribes what you're saying and they do the writing for you. You know, apparently I heard that Donald Trump didn't write The Art of the Deal, which I thought he did. I don't know if he did, but that was a hell of a book. I don't know if he did, but that's what I've heard. Some people said he didn't write the book. But anyway, Stephen A. Smith didn't really address that point. He addressed what I saw was he addressed the fact that Jason Whitlock would even bring that up in the first place. He was talking about it from a character standpoint, like, what kind of slime ball move is this? You know, I talk about my mother, I talk about my father, I talk about my sisters. And you're questioning whether or not I wrote it. So he pushed back on those fronts. Overall, I think that Stephen A. Smith needed to get all of this off of his chest. I commend him for it because now he doesn't need to walk around with it, holding on to it. I don't think he's going to lose his job or change anything. Now, in the past, could something like this have happened? No. But with the advent of social media and guys creating their own platforms, what I'm noticing is that people can now have multiple personality or multiple personas. What do I mean by this? Think of a person like Will Smith. Will Smith, we know him, doesn't curse, didn't curse in his music, had a particular image. Then the minute he went, on social media, you can see him now, because usually Hollywood stars don't do that. You could see him curse and all. You're like, okay, Will Smith curses. And it became more acceptable. And I think that's what's happening here. You can have multiple personalities, not personality, but multiple personas on television. You can be one particular way. Off television, you can be another way. Some people like it. They say it makes you more human. Other people don't. They say, no, you have a brand to maintain. It comes down to the person, honestly, at the end of the day. Now, what do I expect in the aftermath of this? I expect Jason Whitlock to respond. I do. And he will respond. I don't think Stephen A. Smith will respond again. He may very well respond to Jason Whitlock, but I know for a fact that Jason Whitlock is going to respond to this. And if I'm going to be honest with you, it's going to bring a lot of attention to the network that he works with. I think the Blaze or something, and they're going to make some good money off of this too. Let's not forget that fact. I think Stephen A. Smith didn't care whether or not he made him money. I don't think it mattered to him. But it was quite entertaining, and it was something like I've never seen before. So these are my thoughts. What I want to know from you guys, what do you think about the analysis that we put forth in today's show? What do you think about the exchange? And ultimately, how do you think it plays out? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We catch you guys on the next show. Peace.